Alright, so we're back. So now we're going to talk about doing some overpainting details. At this point, you should have your entire background, middle ground, and foreground painted. So at this point, you're really thinking about the sensory information. If you forget what sensory information means, it's on that little tag, this thingy, on the back of your paper. So sensory information is what you would hear, what it smells like, taste, feel. So since I am doing a painting of an orchard, I'm going to include obviously apples. I made the ground look and the whole scene look kind of wet, and kind of look like a fall, moist, damp day. And I did that by the different colors I chose to use and by adding some black and some gray to the sky. If you were doing something at like a carnival and you smelled popcorn or cotton candy, including the popcorn machine or the cotton candy machine is a really good idea. At this point, you are not using a brush that's any smaller than one of these. It's a number 8 or number 10 round brush. You're not doing tiny little details, so don't even ask for a small brush. You know that this paintbrush, if you look at our brush strokes can get this small. So use what you got. Alright, so details. So if I am doing an orchard, obviously I have to have some trees. And so when something's farther away, is it lighter or is it darker? It's darker. So I'm mixing a shade. And remember, a shade is a color mixed with black. So I'm going to paint in my trees. And you want to make sure that your background is pretty dry for this. Otherwise, it's going to start to pull up paint. And I'm pulling up a little bit of my green here, so I can actually use a thicker layer of paint to kind of cover over that. Okay, I'm not going to do... Sorry, I have a cough that's starting. I'm not going to do any more of the trees that are closer. I want to make sure that I'm doing the farthest away trees first, so I make sure that they're dark enough. So right now, I'm doing this tree, and notice that it's darker than that one. So what I need to make sure I do is keep this tree thinner than this one, because this one is darker, so it has to be farther away. I'm going to do some of the branches. I'm not going to do all of them. These I'm going to cover it with some of my paint later on, and I'm going to kind of stipple into there. So I do want to have some branches, but I don't necessarily have to have a lot. Okay, so then I'm going to come back to this one. I'm going to add some branches, and they kind of overlapped each other. Something that I really liked about the orchard. Trees were so close to each other. Okay, I would wait for this to dry and start doing other details. So another detail that I could work on was a lot of the apples had fallen onto the ground. So there were a ton of apples like all over the place. So I could actually take a sponge, like a small sponge, and do a bunch of little apples. But I'm actually going to just use the tip of my paintbrush. So again, I'm going to make a shade of my red. There are a bunch of red apples. And I'm going to just do some dots. I'm going to make sure I keep these pretty far away, because they have so much black added into them. I might want to do some on the trees. And remember, as things are farther away, they're smaller. So if I'm doing these apples this size already, I know that the ones that are closer to me have to be larger. Overlapping some of them. There are a lot that fell really close to the tree. Remember, because apples don't fall very far from the tree. Okay, so I'm adding some of them. Maybe I want to add some closer. They don't just have to stay on the path, because they didn't. They all like kind of bubbled over. So I think these, since they're so close, have to be even bigger. And remember that you are going to be adding people into this, so make sure you're leaving room for them. Okay, for me, I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to start to add the trees in.